Welcome to flip number 1, finding the missing dimension. We got here, how did the ruler freshen his breath? I wonder. All right, hope you appreciated that. Here we go. So what we're working on right now is finding the missing dimension. Really, that's another way of saying finding the missing side of these figures. Now, when you're looking at these rectangles in number 1, you're probably able to do it mentally or very quickly using an operation. Think about what operation you would need to use if you knew that the area was 32 and one side was 8. If you're thinking division, you're absolutely correct. To help us with triangles, though, let's show why that's the case using some algebra. You remember that the formula for the area of a rectangle is the base times the height. That gives us the area. In this case, the base is 8 and the height is this missing side. You could also write it as length times width. Now we can substitute in the information we know. So the area is 32, the base is 8, and the height is what we don't know. This is a one-step equation, and to solve this one-step equation, we'd use division. So the missing side length is 4 feet. Let's do another one. You're probably thinking quickly, I can do some division to figure out this missing side length. If you are, you're totally correct. The missing side length is 10. But again, let's show that we can do this using algebra. Base times height is equal to area. And in this case, we know the height, but we're missing the base. And so we can rewrite that as 12b is equal to 120. And to solve this, we have to divide both sides by 12, which gives us a length of 10 meters. By the way, I can check to make sure this makes sense, because if the base is 10, the area should be 120. 10 times 12 is 120, so it works out. All right, let's do one more rectangle. In this case, we're missing the base again. So we're going to start out by writing the formula for area. Base times height is equal to area. And we'll rewrite that then as 0.5b is equal to 12. And we have to do some division to isolate the variable. Okay, in this case, I'm going to do a little side work since I don't know my 0.5 facts. 12 on the inside, 0.5 on the outside, move that over, move the decimal place over. Make sure you're following along with me with this division work. Now 5 goes into 12 2 times, subtract, bring down the 0, 5 goes into 20 4 times, subtract. Great, so b is equal to 24. Since this is a little bit funny, this problem's a little bit funny with the decimals, I just want to check to make sure that that's the correct answer using multiplication. 24 times 0.5, or 1/2, is equal to 12, so it works out. All right, let's look at some more interesting problems with triangles. The triangle below has an area of 35 square yards. 35 yards squared. What is the length of the base of the triangle? Okay. So in this case, we know the height, but we are trying to find the base. And we're going to solve this in almost exactly the same way we did the rectangles. We're always going to start with our formula. And you probably remember that the formula for the area of a triangle is that the area is equal to 1/2 base times height. And I'm just going to write that in the opposite direction so that the 1/2 part comes first. 1/2 base times height is equal to area. Okay, now I'm going to substitute what I know. 1/2 times b times 7 is equal to 35. My goal is to solve for b, so I need to do everything I can to isolate the variable. b is being multiplied by 1/2, and it's being multiplied by 7. I'm going to deal with the 1/2 first. To deal with it, I need to divide by 1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2. Remember that dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So if I multiply both sides by 2, I've gotten rid of that 1/2. And all that I'm left with is 7 times b is equal to 70, because 35 times 2 is 70. Finally, I'm going to divide by 7 to get rid of the multiplied by 7, which gives me that b is equal to 10 yards. And just to check that this makes sense, if the base is 10, the height is 7, The area is 7 times 10, or 70, divided by 2, which would be 35. You could think about this equation and the work we just did in another way. If I know that the area of the rectangle, or the triangle, was 35, then it would make sense that the area of the rectangle formed with the same base and height is 70. If we double that area, we get 70, just like we doubled it here. And in that case, if you knew the whole rectangle was 70 and one side was 7, then it would make sense that this side is 10. Okay, one more problem to do together, and this one's a little bit more interesting. If you feel like you've got this, you can go ahead and pause or stop the video and do it on your own at your own pace. If not, stick with me. The area of the triangle below is 1 5/7 yards squared. 1 5/7 yards squared. It has a base of 3 yards. What is the height? Okay, so in this case, I know the base. It's equal to 3 yards. And I'm trying to find the height right there. That's what I'm trying to find. Okay, even though this has fractions, mixed numbers, I am still going to deal with it in exactly the same way. I'm going to always start with my formula. 1/2 times the base times the height is equal to the area. Another way of writing that, substitute it in. 1/2 times the base of 3 times the height is equal to 1 5/7. Okay, I know I have to, before I can deal with this any further, I'm going to rewrite this mixed number as an improper fraction. 1/2 times 3 times the height is equal to 7 times 1 is 7, plus 5 is 12, and the denominator stays 7. Okay, I've got two operations happening to the variable, times 3 and times 1/2. I could deal with them separately, like I did in the last problem, or I could simplify this a little bit and do it all in one step. I'm going to go for the simplification route this time. 1/2 times 3 is 3/2. So this is my equation now. And to solve this equation now, if the variable is being multiplied by 3/2, then that means I need to divide by 3/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2/3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2/3. Doing some side work over here, 12 over 7 times 2 over 3. I can simplify by dividing both the top and the bottom by 3. So 3 becomes 1, 12 becomes 4, because 12 divided by 3 is 4. Multiply now, 4 times 2 is 8, 7 times 1 is 7. So the height must be equal to 8/7, or 1 1/7. Awesome. It's as simple as that. If you feel like you struggled with this sum, feel free to pause or to go back and rewatch the video. Otherwise, head on to practice. And before you're done, of course, enjoy this terrible fun.